you silly, stupid old fool! Where's that money?
George's uncle had lost $8,000 from the company due to a foolish mistake. They searched every possible place, even turned over the snow on the road several times, but still couldn't find the money. What's worse, the bank's auditor was waiting at the company to check the accounts. All sorts of negative thoughts filled George's mind at that moment: bankruptcy, scandal, imprisonment. He could almost foresee his own end. What should have been a hopeful Christmas Eve, George was plunged into deep despair. He staggered to a fast-flowing river, gazing at the bottomless water, and a terrible thought came to his mind. If I were to disappear from this world, would everything be better? While he was looking around, not wanting to cause trouble for others, there was a sudden loud splash on the water surface, followed by urgent cries for help. Without hesitation, George immediately jumped into the freezing river to save someone. The old man who had fallen into the water claimed to be George's guardian angel. The purpose of his falling was to save George and encourage him to value the meaning of being alive. More importantly, God had promised him that if he could successfully save George, he would be promoted from a second-class angel to a great angel. Listening to the old man's increasingly absurd words, another good-hearted person who participated in the rescue thought he had encountered a madman and was scared away. George began to suspect that he had drunk fake alcohol, leading to hallucinations. No matter how eloquently the old man spoke, the man who was desperate about life still thought that his death would be more valuable than his life, and the people related to him would live happier. Just thinking about the frightened and scared looks of his children at home just now, and the sad eyes of his wife Mary, George felt more and more that he probably shouldn't have been born in the first place. George's self-abandoning words gave the old man a new inspiration. After a moment of deep thought, he agreed to help George fulfill his just-made wish.
You've got your wish. You've never been bored.
As soon as the words fell, a strong wind blew outside. George was surprised to find that the bleeding wound at the corner of his mouth had strangely disappeared, and his hearing in the left ear had also been restored. Could it be that there really are angels in this world? With a skeptical attitude, George followed the man who claimed to be an angel and set off. They were going to see if the world without him had become better. Walking along, George soon found something was wrong. It was too prosperous here. The streets were full of red wine and green lights, and almost all of them were the properties of the unscrupulous businessman Potter. How could this be?
That man's a liar! I know every big shot in this town! I know Potter and
Hey! The Bailey building alone was up there!
They went out of business years ago.
George couldn't believe what he saw and heard, but he still insisted that it was an illusion caused by drinking fake alcohol, so he decided to go to the bar where he had just drunk to find the answer. When he squeezed into the crowded crowd of the bar with the old man and found an empty seat at the bar, George saw that the person ordering was familiar Nick. He became even more convinced that everything just now was an illusion. However, this Nick acted very coldly, as if he didn't know him at all. At first, George could still force a smile, but soon, he couldn't smile anymore, because he saw Mr. Gower, who should have been a successful man, walking into the bar like a destitute vagrant, with a body full of wind and frost. Under the mocking gaze of everyone, he humbly begged the bar owner to give him a drink, only to be driven out ruthlessly. It was as if he had been struck by lightning.
Nick, isn't that Mr. Gower, the druggist?
20 years in jail for poisoning a kid. If you know him, you must be a jailbird yourself.
George couldn't believe it. Didn't he prevent this tragedy from happening? They were soon thrown out of the bar as troublemakers and lay on the cold snow. George felt that he couldn't think. Countless questions interwove and impacted his brain, leaving it in chaos. Why did everything change? George remembered that the person who caused all these changes was this strange old man who suddenly appeared in his life. Who on earth is he? What's his purpose? He poked the old man's chest hard, trying to find some evidence.
You a hypnotist?
No, of course not.
Well, then why am I seeing all these strange things?
I told you, George, I'm your guardian angel.
Yeah, I know. You told me that.
Then the old man took him to a place. It should have been the Bailey Park, full of lights and laughter, a paradise built by the poor with low-interest loans from George's family's housing loan company. But now it was dead silent. What broke his heart even more was that George saw his brother Harry's grave here. He trembled as he reached out and brushed away the thick snow. The tombstone clearly showed the time of his death. Because there was no George Bailey in this world. In the winter of 1919, Harry drowned after falling into that ice hole. All the glory that George remembered about his brother Harry was gone. He didn't become a pilot, didn't save a ship of soldiers, and didn't receive the Congressional Medal of Honor from the president. This is the world without George Bailey. It's too terrible. George immediately rushed back to the home he shared with Mary, desperate to check on her and the children. But the warm, lively house he remembered was now pitch black, with cobwebs covering every corner. There wasn't a trace of anyone. George searched frantically, calling out desperately again and again, but no one responded. No beloved Mary, and no adorable children.
I don't know how you know these things, but tell me, where is she? If you know where she is, tell me where my wife is. Please, Clarence, tell me where she is.
You're not gonna like it, George.
Where is she? Where is Mary? Where is she? Where is she?
Clarence couldn't bear George's pleading and took him to see Mary, who hadn't married him. But the result was a shock to everyone. Mary without George didn't live well either. She became an old maid, working in a library. George's heart shattered. In a daze, he remembered the question he had asked Mary before: why did you choose to marry me instead of the richer Sam or someone else in town? Mary's answer was, I want my children to look like you. Indeed, what moved Mary was never money, but responsibility and commitment. George was the best person to marry in this town, and no one could replace his position in Mary's heart. Snapping out of his memories, George rushed up to Mary to recognize her. Unfortunately, Mary in this world didn't know any George. She was scared and screamed at the strange man who suddenly appeared and entangled her. George truly felt the pain of the heart, which was more than 100 times more painful than owing the bank $8,000. It turned out that being forgotten by the loved one was the real despair. George regretted it. He wanted to go back to the original world where he existed. However, Clarence was gone. He went crazy, pushed open the crowd, ran all the way to the river where he met Clarence, and begged him to change him back.
Clarence! Clarence! Help me, Clarence! Get me back to my wife and kids! Help me, Clarence, please!
The sky started to snow heavily again. Before George could react, the mistake just now was corrected again, and time went back to before he wanted to jump into the river. His good friend drove a taxi and found him. He had been looking for him for almost the whole night and finally found him. George hugged his friend excitedly. He was extremely grateful and missed the feeling of being remembered. It's a wonderful life. George ran all the way, greeting everyone he met and sending them the most sincere Christmas greetings. Even the most hated Mr. Potter didn't miss out. Finally, he returned to the shabby but extremely warm home he and Mary had built together. Then he ran upstairs and tightly hugged his children who had been waiting for Christmas.
George, darling, where are you? Oh, George. Come on in here now.
The townspeople also poured in, bringing the money they had raised bit by bit to help George through this difficult time. Seeing George's stunned expression, Uncle Billy told him the truth. It was all Mary's idea. From the moment she knew he was in trouble, she immediately took action. The townspeople didn't ask anything. They just said that if George had trouble, count me in. Love given came back tenfold. All the people George had ever helped reached out to him, including his old friend Sam from London, who, upon receiving George's telegram about his trouble, immediately sent $25,000. Amidst the festive scene, George spotted a copy of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It was left by Clarence. On the flyleaf was a message from Clarence to George. Remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Just then, the Christmas tree's wind chime rang out. A new second-class angel had earned his wings and ascended to become a great angel.
I owe everything to George Bailey. Help him, dear Father.
Jesus and Mary, help my friend, Mr. Bailey.
George is a good guy. Give him a break, God.
Please, God, something's the matter with Daddy.
George Bailey. Yes, tonight's his crucial night, you're right. Joseph, send for Clarence. That man will be thinking seriously of throwing away God's greatest gift.